Good afternoon, Mr. Jim Jeffrey. I would like to welcome the President of IEEE to the IEEE Consumer Electronics Society Conference, International Conference on Consumer Electronics 2018 in Las Vegas. So welcome to the conference and to the CES show.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here to see the show and also the opportunity to participate in the CES meeting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just to ask you briefly, how do you value the relationship between IEEE and Consumer Electronics Show and Consumer Technology Association?
Well, certainly all of our IEEE societies, including consumer electronics, cover many areas. And so our members work in all of those companies and all those different places, all the different technologies. We have members that are working on the research side. We have members that are working on the manufacturing side, the whole range. So the relationship clearly is strong. And our ability to convene communities. One of the strengths of IEEE is our ability to convene these communities when they need to be, our ability to introduce standards, where standards are critically important to product success. So the link between the societies and IEEE and the show itself, where we have more of the commercial side, I think is strong and important.
Thank you. As we all know that IEEE has more than 1,600 international conferences, and attracting like more than 440,000 people worldwide from different levels, from scientists to engineers to regulatory officers. This is one of the conferences that it is a flagship for Consumer Electronics Society. And so what is the IEEE focusing on these days on the main conferences, since we have almost 1,600 conferences?
I think we have a range of different kinds of conferences, and certainly when we are doing our technical conferences where we have deep technical content, that has a particular purpose for certain members of IEEE. We also are going to do more conferences, things like a humanitarian activities conference, things like a broader level conference, a student and young professional congress. Just last weekend we had a Rising Stars conference here in Las Vegas with 270 young professionals and students, and they were talking more about the directions of technology. Speakers from Facebook and Google and Made in Space, who are just inspiring people about careers in engineering. So I think we have a role to play on both sides, the technical education through conferences and also conferences that can convey high-level information to help students think about their careers, also to think about policy, and the importance of public policy. So even in the consumer electronics area where we are right now, we know how to do many things. Sensor-wise, we can do self-driving and autonomous vehicles. But there are also the issues of privacy, the issues of ethics, the issues of security. All of these things will also come in, and they will come from the public policy arena as much as from the technical arena.
Thank you. We know that IEEE has now future directions, and there are so many initiatives like big data, IoT, 5G. And how would you like to, as a president of IEEE, how would you like to see this future direction and initiatives to be injected into the conferences themselves?
Yeah, so I think Future Directions has been around for about 5 years in IEEE, and it's an activity that's funded directly by the Board of Directors. So our Board of Directors each year sets aside money specifically for things that don't have a natural home. Many of the Future Directions cross over the disciplines. If you take something like big data or something like the Brain Initiative, which involves neuroscience, it involves computing, it involves sensors, it involves a lot of different areas. And so these often are things that cross over multiple areas. And so we'll continue to use that mechanism to create multidisciplinary communities and groups that make sense for the organization, and ultimately find a permanent home in the organization as we transition them into a permanent place.
IEEE has a huge digital library, which is the Explorer, and publication, very rich publication from almost 36 societies. And each societies, they have so many different and several conferences. These publications became a treasure for industry, for academia, for implementation, for references. And There is a call that if there will be an open access, because we are now facing another publications and publishers, they do an open. And what is your thought about this?
Well, certainly open access is here. It's not something in the future. It's here. We have open access journals already at IEEE to complement what we have within our other approaches to publishing. I think we're going to see more open access happen. Another thing that we'd like to see in our publications database is some people say a lot of our publications are academically oriented and they may not reach the practicing engineer. And so we would like to see an increased amount of content which actually supports the practicing engineer, which represents more than half of our membership. So I think a couple of changes in publishing. Also, I think publishing is going to change in terms of its requirements for cost. You know, the value of information, once you have open access dictated, once you have a different market out there for the publications, you have to deal with that market and the cost that it can support. And so I think we're going to see a need to continue to manage and innovate in the way that we deliver publications and drive the cost down.
Excellent. You brought to my mind about the industry. I remember that I was attended back in 2008 the Section Congress in Quebec City, and we did have a keynote speaker. He was Dr. Ibrahim Gideon. He is now the CTO of TELUS, and he was asking the leadership of IEEE to enhance the relationship with industry. Since the membership of IEEE is about 64, more than 64% of IEEE membership. So what is your thought about that?
Well, my thought is that's good. I was at that session also, and remember that presentation. It was excellent. And it did challenge us to say, what are we going to do to open up more value services and products to that market. And some of the things that have happened this year, in fact, January 1st of this year, the Industry Advisory Committee became a permanent committee of the IEEE board. It had been an ad hoc, so it is now a permanent committee of IEEE. We have formed our first meeting last fall of an industry advisory board, where we had about a dozen C-level executives from different industries advising us on what we could do to offer a better set of services and products, including career support, more publications in the practical side of things, more conferences that might appeal to practicing engineers. And all of these things are happening. Particularly excited about the Industry Advisory Committee becoming a permanent part of IEEE with full funding and responsibility.
Excellent. And my last question is, what is your message to the young professional and women in engineering?
So my message to young professionals and women in engineering is that they are a critical part and they are the future of IEEE. And it is our obligation as a leadership to prepare both the opportunities for them to participate and to bring them into participation in the organization. Last year, for the first time, we put a young professional on every one of our IEEE committees by design. And that is a small step, but it's an appropriate directional step. In the future, we need to create more opportunities. The young professionals have created a business plan, which is, you can look up, it's actually excellent, that talks about the way that they would be able to engage as volunteers. They may not want to be on a 2-year committee, but they may want to micro-volunteer for a short period of time and make a significant contribution. Every time that I'm around the young professionals, the women in engineering groups, their energy, inspires the organization. They will be the future of IEEE, and we need to make room for them, which we will do.
Mr. Jim Jefferies, IEEE President, thank you very much for this interview, and thank you for coming to IEEE Consumer Electronics
Great to be here and great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.